Today we have our student ambassador, Vaishnavi Dixit. Vaishnavi is a freshman international student majoring in statistics at Adelphi University in the Honors College. Welcome, Vaishnavi. Dance is an art form that she has pursued for 11 years, and photography is something she is learning. Coming from India as a girl, she has always been passionate about women's empowerment. She hopes to contribute to society through the education she gains and the resources and opportunity at Adelphi to make the society a better place for women. Vaishnavi.
Hello, everyone. So to introduce our amazing artivists for today, firstly, we have Tereza Buskova, who is a Czech artist who lives in Birmingham with her young family. Her practice celebrates and it reinterprets long-established customs, particularly ritual, tradition, and craft, as carriers of identity and belonging. She works in print, video, performance, and public art projects, including staging large-scale participatory events with local communities. Buskova completed her fine art printmaking MA at the Royal College of Art in 2007. Secondly, we have Karolina Wegrzyn, who is a singer, accordionist, and hammered dulcimer player from Poland. She comes from a region rich in traditional customs. Her grandmother used to lead a village folk dance group. Since she was very little, she would wear folk costumes and perform songs. Karolina is also a visual artist and a song collector. She meets with elderly citizens to record old forgotten songs and stories. Subcarpathia, her native region, is rich in multiculturalism as it borders with Ukraine and Slovakia, but also reminisces about Jewish, Roma, and Russian communities that used to settle there. Last year, Karolina also took a third prize in one of her country's most important folk music competitions, the True Musicians Tournament in Szczecin. Lastly, we have Tina Francis, who believes working with stitching gives you a different perspective of time. She measures days in inches, not hours. Stitching is a language all of its own, and it's familiar. Working with Tereza on the Hidden Mothers project, she uses stitch making to communicate with and learn from the participants. Francis has a community interest company called Woolly Mammoth Stitch Works, where she partners with a community outreach specialist. The idea is face-to-face meetings where participants create a small piece of stitching that forms a large piece of work, forming friendships, safe spaces to share their experiences, and create a legacy. Let's welcome Miss Tereza, Miss Karolina.
Hello. Thank you, Vaishnavi, for the lovely introduction. And thank you, ARTIVISM team, for having me with you today and for allowing me to share my practice with the wider audience. And also thank you to Karolina and Tina, my amazing artist collaborators who I met during the Hidden Mothers project and who I'm hoping to collaborate yet again on new piece of work called Little Queens, which should happen this June. And I would like to share with you some images as well as the actual video, Hidden Mothers. Okay. Okay. So as an artist, I celebrate long-established customs with performance, print, and video. My practice deals with craft, tradition, and rituals, which I reinvent with collaborators like Zoe Simon, Mariana Novotná, Bella Emerson, and and many other very talented artists who have been working with me for the past 15 years. And Slavic rituals are often my starting point. As a UK-based Czech artist, I have emigrated to the United Kingdom in 1998. And as a mother, I also explore other cultures, customs, and universal ideas of motherhood and community. So I'm always working on developing further my practice, finding new ways of connecting with the outside world, inviting my neighbors. So that would be the image on the left with that handmade pastry. Inviting my neighbors to take part in various ceremonies, and in this particular one, baked symbol offering protection and was made offering protection, and it was made for the purpose of straightening the bond of our wood-born community here in Birmingham, where I live. I'm a visual artist, but I also work as an art educator. I teach art at my children's primary school in my local area, and I have been artist in residence at Chadwell Primary since 2017. So I managed to set up an after-school art club where I teach twice a week. And there's an article by Jude Coven about the way I teach. And if you're interested, you can look it up online. I try to introduce different artists from all around the world to the children, and they use their art as a reference to create their own piece of artwork. Often I choose artists from Central and Eastern Europe, and mostly I look out for women artists who are amazing, but maybe not as visible to the public. And I work with various art techniques, art media, and I believe every child has the potential to be a great artist. And it's just about a way of bringing that out of the children and allowing them and to express themselves freely in these art clubs and show their personality, learn about themselves as well as the world around them, and to experiment. I also work, I also do one-to-one teaching, and here are artworks produced by Betty, who I've been working very closely in the last year. So often, as I said, rituals, customs, and traditions are the starting point for my projects. And I started creating work in a studio space when I was studying printmaking at the Royal College of Art in London, 2005-2007. And it was not so long after I graduated that I stepped outside of that studio space into the openness and into going back to my roots, traveling to Czech Republic and actually producing work in villages and towns where folklore is very much alive, and witnessing the ritualistic practices which are almost forgotten, and somehow like keeping them alive by not just, so my aim is not to portray them as they are. My aim is to only sort of look at the origins, look at the hidden meanings and symbolism of these rituals, and use them as a reference to create a new body of work with the audience and with the participants. So, for instance, I was in a village in the south of Czech Republic in winter time, where every year, and same in other Central Eastern European nations, they celebrate and saying goodbye to the winter and getting ready for Lent, and celebrating with their own customs. This one was called the Rose Ritual, which would be performed in a company of a brass band in the village by getting a blessing from the priest in the morning, and those young fertile men dressed in suits wearing hats made out of 365 paper roses to symbolize the flowers on the meadows, and having red and white ribbons covering their faces, symbolizing the sweat and blood of Jesus Christ. And they would perform this ritual outside every single house in the village. If someone passed away recently, they would still perform the ritual, but in silence. These carolers were led by the mother of Masopust. Masopust basically means to, maso means meat, pust means to let go. So to let go of meat, to prepare for Lent. So these carols would be led by the mother of Masopust, a figure covered in torn pieces of fabric. And this figure would then lead the ritual and would make stops around the villages. And so on. Women were there to dress the man, to prepare the food and drinks. And I was there making observations, making a video, and then traveling a few miles away from this village and making my own interpretation together with my collaborators in the snowy landscape. So this work is called Masopust, and you are able to see all my videos through my website. So craft is very important to me, and especially baking. So I became really interested in the craft of baking since becoming a mother, and I guess the first project which really focused on the craft and the baking itself was clipping the church, which you managed to see just before we started. It was work made in 2016. I will, I think I've got an image coming. Here on the right, the black and white image comes from Poland. These pieces of bread are supposed to represent a small child, small baby, and were traditionally baked when a child was born, often mainly prepared by the godmother of the child. And these breads are called kukelki. And I came across kukelki as I was working on Hidden Mothers project. And I thought it would be fantastic to recreate this fantastic ceremonial bread together with the women in London. I've got an image coming up later. So again, here is a good example of how I look at old rituals, old customs, and not only from the Slavic countries, but also from here, from England. So this is an old English custom called clipping the church, which you probably recognize the image on the right from the video, and an image, this old drawing I came across the main library in Birmingham in a book called Customs and Rituals from the West Midlands. And it immediately struck me as something that I would love to explore and then recreate with the local community of Birmingham, as this ritual used to happen in Birmingham. It still happens here. It still happens in the UK to this day in 2 to 3 places. It's a custom linked to Mothering Sunday, but it is almost forgotten custom. Not many even English people heard about this bizarre, peculiar custom. So it was quite interesting to bring this pagan ritual alive and connect through this ritual with many different communities here in Birmingham. And here is the image. Here is the procession, the main procession, which happened through the High Street of Erdington in 2016, just 2 weeks before Brexit referendum. So originally I wanted to revive this almost forgotten custom to bring people together. I was interested in the act of uniting people, in the act of holding hands with a stranger, in the act of creating a circle round a church, the act of joint procession, and the act of baking. Here you can see over 300 pastries hung on this wooden construction, which comes from another region in Czech Republic, traditionally carried during weddings. This pastry is very symbolic. It was given to mothers after birth to give them strength. And this pastry was often baked by my grandmother, then my mum, and I carried on with the tradition, introducing it here in the UK and carrying it in the main procession, and then sharing this pastry with the participants and the audience after this public art project. So those costumes were designed by me in collaboration with Mariana Novotná, my long-term costume maker, who lives and works in Prague in Czech Republic. And she hand-stitched these in the Czech Republic, and absolutely beautiful costumes. Unfortunately, they don't live anymore. They've been eaten by mice in my old house, which was very upsetting. Then again, I thought, okay, I guess this is part of life. You have something and then you lose it and you make something new. So I'm glad that I often make a new body of work from these performances, something that lives on further, something I can then share. And here is an image from 2021, public art project called Hidden Mothers. So Hidden Mothers is a Central and Eastern European themed public art project focusing on the empowerment of migrant and refugee mothers and women facing isolation and vulnerability in the UK today. With local communities in Birmingham and London, I created, together with others, a processional performance inspired by Czech and British culture. It was infused with Central and Eastern European symbolism and culminated in the installation of Slovak-inspired cottage façade as a statement of togetherness and of being home. Here are just a few images from the main inspiration, the first inspiration for this project. So this village lies in the north of Slovakia. It's called Chichmany. It was the first village protected by UNESCO, and it still has its inhabitants, and it's called Painted Village because those old timber houses have hand-painted symbols, white symbols, painted by women, and they were often replicating the beautiful embroideries found in the garments from this region. And I was very much struck by these amazing architectural pieces and the story behind them, and the hidden symbolism of these symbols. Every single symbol has its meaning. If it's prosperity or womanhood, protection, magic, and that's something that really intrigued me to then work on an installation piece together with Studio Polpo in collaboration with the migrant refugee women for Hidden Mothers. So here you can see where during the workshops, together with these women, we recreated the symbols for our installation by looking at the original symbolism. So that was very meaningful. Here on the right, you can see some work we did together with Tina during the workshops. I'll have more images coming. On the left, you can see a photograph which gave this project its title. It comes from Victorian times, where when child photographic portraits in the 19th century would take a long time because of the exposure, and mothers would often cover themselves with a piece of cloth, and they were asked to sit nearby in order to keep their children still during long exposures without appearing in the photo themselves. And then I kind of argue that today we can analyze this politically as representing the marginalization of mothers' presence and contribution, and certainly there were no hidden fathers. In present-day modern society, the nature of motherhood is still often invisible to the outside, hidden inside the home or by social mechanism of disadvantage. This hiding may be further compounded by the complex challenges of otherness and stigma that come with migrant status. So this is just a glimpse from the workshops that took place during those 2 years. The project itself took 1 year longer because of COVID, but it was a big relief that it all came together at the end, even though there were many hurdles on the way. But then again, it kind of made the whole project even stronger. And I would like to show you the video now. Sorry, I was just checking that the sound is on. Yeah, good, thank you.
I think the sound is off now.
Sorry, did you say the sound isn't on?
Yes, the sound is off now.
Oh, okay. 1 second. That should work now.
Yes.
Ой, чого ж зозуле, ой, чого ж ти коєш, хіба ж ти зозуле, добро мене чуєш, хіба ж ти зозуле, добро мене чуєш. Якби не чувала, то би не кувала, про тебе, дівчино, всю правду сказала, про тебе, дівчино, всю правду сказала. Ой, Боже ж мой Боже, що я наробила, козак має жінку, а я полюбила, козак має жінку, а я полюбила. Козак має жінку, ще й діточок двоє, ще й діточок двоє, чорняві обоє, ще й діточок двоє, чорняві обоє. Ай, я ж тих діточок, та й не понаймаю, з тобою, Марисю, в саду й погуляю, з тобою, Марисю, в саду й погуляю. Гуляв козаченько, не й дві ночі, прийшов козаченько до дівчини в гості, прийшов козаченько до дівчини в гості. Ой, Боже ж мой Боже, як я одавася на чужій сторонці, за жінку признався, на чужій сторонці, за жінку признався. Не так же за жінку, як за дві дитини, розколов серце на дві половини, розколов серце на дві половини.
Okay. Oh, 1 second, sorry. Okay, I'm back. So now I would like to give word to Tina Francis, who I had the pleasure to collaborate with on this beautiful project. And maybe Tina can tell you a little bit about that while I show you some images from these workshops.
Okay, hi, I'm Tina. What's fantastic about the Hidden Mothers project is that we were working together, me and Tereza, and we had our own ideas and we had our own collaboration. So we had a collaboration before we even met the mothers themselves, which was really fantastic, because sometimes as artists, you've got your own practice, you've got your own idea about what you want something to look like. But working with Tereza, it was a true collaboration in that no idea was a bad idea. So I looked at what Tereza was talking to me about the rituals, and as you can see in this image, stitching with a child. So using the needle almost as the conversation, so pushing the needle through and getting a child to push it back in again. And earlier on we were talking about that, you know, with stitch, it is its own language and people are quite familiar with stitch, and it's a nice level place where you can join in. And as much as I was looking at the people and helping the people to stitch, they were also teaching me the way that they stitched in their own country. So it was really exciting to see people come in, see something that was familiar and that they could actually do, and show people what they could do, because a lot of the time it's a day-to-day struggle. When you come to a different country, it's really difficult. And if something is quite familiar that you can actually do and actually you know, contribute, it creates a really beautiful buzz around. I think that's what Tereza, when we were in there and people were stitching away, I was doing the stitching side, Tereza was speaking to the women, you know, asking them about themselves as well. So it was a really great synergy. It wasn't only about the action of stitching, it was about the collaboration between people and asking them about themselves. Here you can see everybody stitching away and creating beautiful pieces of work that were added to the insignia. Yeah,
so we had some images from traditional folklore from Czech Republic and Slovakia, which we then kind of reinterpreted, I guess, and allow the women to reinterpret these patterns and symbols in their own way. And yeah, so it was really great to work with women and for women to use art as a way of communicating, and lots of messages conveyed through all these layers, didn't it? And as you said, we shared stories, and I was going to mention quickly that one organization which was supporting this project, called Use It, working in partnership with Birmingham University, they sent their researcher Kat Good, who they commissioned her to write this report study, collecting data and all histories from these women, and she then said in her writings, and you can actually Google this up and have a read if you're interested, how mothers describe grief over loss of home and longing for this familiarity, longing for their home, for their roots, and kind of how all this kind of how things changed since they became a mother, and how homesickness sort of developed in relation to having their own children, and how it's important to be involved in projects like this, seeking sort of comfort through their local community.
I think that's really true as well, in that, you know, the collaboration you can see here with this really small child really wanting to copy what their mothers were doing, and that they were really excited about that, weren't they, Teresa? That you know, some of the really young, I mean, I think this child is probably only about 2.5 or something.
Yes,
I think, but they were really excited to be able to be given something that their, you know, that their mothers had, and the mothers were all in turn excited to see that they could actually show their children as well what they were doing and stitching away. So it was a beautiful collaboration. And here it's really, I love this image so much, because I think that this talks about the whole thing. You've got the symbolism of the shape of the insignia, but also people helping without words, and you know, the movement of stitch between different countries really is how we stitch together. And
reconnecting with each other through the stitching. So these were interesting. I really like those circles that you brought with you, Tina.
Yeah, and I think that a circle, it's a really great thing. We were using, sometimes we were using scrap materials that we got, because both Teresa and I are really sort of passionate about using what we've already got, but also these plastic canvas circles. They give you quite a lot. The shape is something that we wanted for the insignia, but the actual stitching away, each woman was able to stitch whatever they wanted to in whatever way, and with different things. And so a lot of the women really loved gold, and they really loved, you know, to really intricately add their own sort of mark, really. So when you put a whole load of sequins on there, it's almost like their own maker's mark, that, you know, something that they absolutely love. Like the shiny was fantastic as well, and this young person here stitching away, I think that is motherhood, isn't it, where you've got your child with you and you're showing them, and it's generational, really.
Absolutely. And it was a beautiful collaboration with an organization called Mothership Projects, who are based here very close to our home in Birmingham, and they help sort of newcomers arriving to UK to settle, and they don't only help them with practical things, but they mainly focus on involving these women and their families in creative projects. So for instance, they help them to set up a bakery locally, and it's absolutely thriving. It's recently been on the news, how these women learn to bake, and they make this freshly made bread every day, and they sell it to the local community. And I was absolute joy to work with Mothership Projects, as well as beautiful women from British Red Cross, and we are hoping to collaborate together on the new project as well, which is fantastic.
I think it's the empowerment as well that they bring in, that you are earning your own income, because there are different rules about if you can earn income when you first come to different countries. And the whole thing about Mothership is about giving people the opportunity to earn some money from your own craft. And this is when we were in London, isn't it, as well?
Yes. So we also did a workshop in London, in a local sort of community center, where a group of women came and were really keen to also put their own marks on these mothers' insignias, which was fabulous. Here we are, standing outside with one of the finished insignia.
So as well as it being cross countries, it was also in 2 main cities in the UK that were coming together to do the work to do the stitching, and people, you can see people were just so proud of what they'd achieved in a short time. And I know that some people in this group are now actual friends, and they're out and about in London together as well. So from one small act of stitch, and with Tereza building people together, they've actually got friends. They're friends now, and they're out and about together.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for us, it's more than an art project, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely about the community that's created.
There's just a couple of images from one of the other workshops happening in London, where we, as I mentioned before, recreated those traditional ceremonial Polish breads, kukelki. So again, it was a bunch of women making these two giant pieces of sweet bread, which was then carried in the procession, in the Hidden Mother's procession. And here it is when it was half baked, very heavy. My husband was one of the carrier of this bread in the ceremonial procession, and he said to me afterwards, "My gosh, you let me carry this piece of bread, which had about 10 kilos, for almost an hour. My hands were shaking." And he said, "Well, now you know the weight of motherhood." And now, thank you so much, Tina.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And I have the pleasure also to introduce Karolina Wegrzyn to you, who collaborated with me with her beautiful singing, and that song, maybe you can say the meaning of those words, and that song itself is Ukrainian. And so maybe you can say that in a few minutes. I just wanted to say that I met Karolina at one of the art galleries here in Birmingham, and as soon as I heard her singing, I had goosebumps, and I just knew straight away that, you know, we need to work together, and she's very special. And it was Karolina who introduced me to the white voice singing.
Yes.
And then we had really interesting conversation about folk songs and the meanings, and how often a sad song is about love, isn't it? So it's kind of other way around. So maybe you can say a little bit about that.
Yes, of course. I first wanted to thank you, Tereza, so much for inviting me here, and thank you to everyone at Adelphi University and Arji and Vaishnavi for a wonderful introduction. So yes, meeting Tereza was incredible point in my life, because we both share such mutual love to folklore and traditions. And when she asked me to participate in this motherhood project, it really it was really good, because it challenged me to do research into songs, about folk songs and stories about motherhood. And I found out that a lot of, if not most of those songs that mention mothers and motherhood, they talk about very dramatic stories, sad stories very often. And beginning from lullabies that talk about mothers warning children about their future being filled with hard work, to mothers worrying about their young daughters, having to wed them and having to choose a good man for them, to mothers crying for the daughters after the wedding, after them being married, and hoping that the future or the husband will be kind to them and not beat them, because that would happen a lot in those days. even to songs of orphan children longing for their mothers. I came across a lot of those songs. So the song that we chose, the Ukrainian song, it's actually quite a strange story, because it talks about the first verse talks about a cuckoo flying over a young girl, and the cuckoo is a symbol of bad news in folklore. And the girl was crying, and she was telling her story about how she fell in love with a Cossack who had a wife and 2 children. And then the story changes to Cossack crying because he couldn't choose, and begging his God to help him with his sorrows, because his heart is split in 2. So it's a strange type of fatherhood, actually, or a story of love involving to someone who's got children, but the father chooses his children to stay with his children rather than the young girl that he fell in love with. So, but we chose this song, I think, because it fitted perfectly with the Tereza's idea, and
it was quite uncanny, wasn't it? Because
yes, yeah.
I called you, was the last evening of the editing with Fanny Brothers here in Birmingham, and we made the edit, but then somehow I couldn't find the right song for the footage. So I called Karolina and I said, actually, I like this song, but I don't have a good recording. I think you sang it on the day, and she said, oh, no problem, I'll record it. I'll call you back in half an hour. And in 15 minutes, you said, Tereza, it's in the email, and we played the sound, and we just looked at each other with Gab, and we both were like, oh my goodness, this. And Gab said to me, did Karolina just record this? And I said, I don't know. Did she? How could she? And yeah, Karolina was like, yes, I just recorded this in my living room. And then you added these layers, so it sounds like there are several women singing, and it was just beautiful. And what was the uncanny bit was that when we dropped the sound, the song with the edit, it was exact the same length to the second. And we again looked at each other and thought, wow, it's meant to be. So, and then you came round to watch it, the finished work, the finished video, and you had tears in your eyes, and you said to me afterwards, my gosh, you know, it fits beautifully. It starts when Zoe opens her arms, and it's when the cuckoo flies over, and then at the end when they think about the heart breaking in 2 halves, Zoe does that movement with her hands. And yes, that was very
meant to be.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is the last image. And before you I know you prepared a song for us. I really hope you did. It would be amazing if you could sing a song to close this talk and today. And also I wanted to add that at the end of this performance in Peckham, I remember Zoe just lay there for quite a while, about 10 minutes, and then she stood up, and she was still covered in that beautiful ribbon mask, and she hugged me really strongly, and she said, I'm crying so much. I don't know why, but I'm just crying. And it started as she was laying on the ground with this hokelke inspired bread laying on top of her. So yes, I'll leave it to Karolina to close this talk. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. So I chose a slightly happier story for this meeting. It's a Macedonian song, Girl Fair and Rosy. It talks about a young girl being so beautiful, and the people are asking her, why are you so beautiful? And it's because the girl says to her mother, it was thanks to you, my mother, who bore me and who bathed me in fresh milk. So the daughter is thanking her mother. Devojče, belo crveno, devojče, belo crveno, a što si toliko bava, a što si toliko bava, da li si od Boga padnala, da li si od Boga padnala, ili si od bavča niknala, ili si od bavča niknala. Nic samo od Boga padnala, nic samo od Boga padnala, nic samo od bavča niknala, nic samo od bavča niknala. Ti si me, majka rodnila, ti si me, majka rodnila, presno me mleko banjala, presno me mleko banjala. Thank you.
That was so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Beautiful.
much. Let's give it over to Vaishnavi.
Thank you so much for being our artivists for today. For the events that are coming, this Thursday, April 14th, is the Clothline Project at Adelphi University. This event will include elements of Monica Mayer, El Tendedero from 1978. On Monday, April 18 is a multilingual Artivism, the case of the America's Poetry Festivals of New York, and Arte Poetica Press with Dr. Carlos Aguasaco. For more information on this and all of the series, past and upcoming events, please go to the website www.adelphi.edu/artivism/ follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Artivism for Shared Humanity, or simply Google Artivism and Adelphi. Our YouTube channel is ARTIVISM for Shared Humanity. If you would like to get involved in this ongoing initiative, please contact the ARTIVISM team at artivism@adelphi.edu. Now I'd like to ask if there are any questions for our artivists. Please use the raise hand function on Zoom, unmute yourself, or ask your question in the Zoom chat.
Any questions, any comments? This was beautiful. I have a question. What is the symbolism for rosemary? I saw in many of the, you know, in with the costumes or the floral arrangements, there was the rosemary leaves.
You know what?
I think it's for remembrance.
Yeah.
In the UK, it's about remembrance. You would plant a rosemary bush on the side of graves. You see rosemary quite a bit in graveyards, but I'm not sure.
I think I just picked this herb intuitively without any kind of association, unless I read about it in some of my books and I forgot. But no, I think that was kind of my addition, because I was inspired by the Slavic goddess Mokosh for creating these costumes. If you Google Mokosh, you will see the connection, and this Slavic goddess was also, so she was a goddess of craft and of she was also a protector of women and children, and is someone who really inspired me. So Zoe Simon, she was kind of embodying the Slavic goddess Mokosh, and in one of the, I saw these beautiful kind of embroideries of Mokosh, and by the sort of side of the skirt, which looks like a house, were these little branches sticking out. So I guess I thought, let's use rosemary to add these to the costume. So there's not like a direct link association, but it's interesting what Tina said.
It is, because I know that even the herb as an essential oil, rosemary, is good for memory. I think it's even I think it's even quoted by Shakespeare, rosemary and remembering. But don't quote me on that.
It's also a symbol of love and faithfulness.
Yes. Yeah.
One more question. The breads, are they eaten, or are they disposed of in any particular way?
No, traditionally they are, you know, shared within the community, within the family, when the child was born, and then I think traditionally this bread was given to the child on the day of birth, but then every year until the age of, I think, 13. I'm not sure exact age, but at least 10 years, first 10 years, and it will be eaten. But because of COVID, I knew that we won't be able to do this, like with the celestial crusts, which were carried in the procession in Eddington as part of Clipping the Church project, and these were shared in the community, and that was quite beautiful to do that at the end. So we couldn't do this, so then I decided to hang these two breads on red ribbons on the outside, on the facade of this cottage installation. So I don't know how long they've been, you know, preserved, if they've been eaten by some animals in London, or what happened to them. But I thought that, well, that's quite beautiful, you know, just to leave it there and, you know, and see what happens. So
Oh, yes, of course. I know with breads that are made for a specific occasion or ritual, you never throw them away. If you're not going to eat them, you leave it out for the birds or the squirrels, or you bury them, right?
Mm, mm.
And I was very, very happy to see your projects that you do with young children, where you try and introduce women artists and other artists that are not well known. Because I know from this side, for if you're going to take your child to, one of these art schools or these afternoon art schools, they're shown a Van Gogh painting and then they recreate Starry Night
Mhm.
or a Picasso. And Karolina,
Usual
do you want to
suspects.
give
Yeah.
them? Yes, Karolina, do you want to ask that question of yours?
Sure. Thank you for this marvelous presentation here. Also echoing with
Welcome.
Andre on the chat. Um, I have a question, like an icebreaker that we use in some of our in-person events. That, by the way, also this coming week is the opening of the ARTIVISM global exhibition, of which some of you are participating. So thank you for that. I will keep you posted and see if we can live stream the opening via some sort of method so that you can also participate around the world. And the icebreaker goes just from the top of your head. Just tell us master painter. Then also once you get a couple of those, then you can tell us a master literature, work of literature that comes to mind from the top of your head without thinking it too much, right? So you're doing the exercise now. You're thinking, you got those questions in your mind, you have the answers. Another one might be just tell us a musician, a classic, someone that is considered a master in music, right? So just if you want, you can share in the chat now, or if not, we'll make a rhetoric question. But I'll leave it for you to think, consider, because we all know what those answers are. And that is what this initiative is about, to change those canons and introduce the ones that should be popping into our mind without having to double think it or think deeply into those answers. And I would like to also now take a second here to go back to your presentation, Ms. Buskova, and how you said that powerful line of now that your husband mentioned, now you know the weight of motherhood, right? And I'm also echoing Miss Karolina with a K, because I'm Karolina with a C. So we had two Karolinas today in the call. And she said all this sentiment, like the sentiment that comes across even in lullabies, in any sort of motherhood song or writing, right? And I couldn't stop thinking of everything that this conveys, right? Like, imagine everything going around the world in various sectors, and mothers, their worries that you said, their hopes, right? Everything that is in within that body of being a mother. And now, of course, the definition of a mother has broadened, right? It's not just who is a biological mother, but it also includes all these other conversations of including everyone that basically cares about others, right? So in a sense, everyone is a mother as long as you can have those sentiments of caring for someone else rather than yourself, right? And you capture all this so beautifully as a team with Miss Francis, Miss, let me see, I'm sorry here, Wegrzyn, right? Wegrzyn?
Wegrzyn.
Almost, you see, I almost got it. Right, and Miss Buskova. So, such a pleasure. One question that we always like to ask as a closing for the events here in Artivism is to ask our speakers to give us a key takeaway from today's presentation for our audience members to take action. So just one. I know we had so much in this presentation, but just one action point for all of the ones watching this presentation and here present at the moment. What can we do from our position to change our current society? Before we go there, I would like to take a second to shout out our student ambassador. Come on, help me out here. Vaishnavi, hey, great work. Claps for everyone. wonderful, wonderful student ambassador representation. And now I give the mic to you, our presenters, including you, Vaishnavi, if you want to share an action point, because I know that you're also engaged in a lot of. So now the floor is yours.
Vaishnavi, would you like to say something?
What I think is personally that it's really important during this time, especially that we give choice to everyone. As we were talking about hidden mothers, and I loved how she talked about how motherhood is not just about having a kid, but it's about caring for someone else. I feel like, yeah, having that choice and caring for the others is the most important thing right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know, I had so many women coming up to me during the making of Hidden Mothers, and they said, Tereza, I would love to take part in your workshops in the project, but I'm not a mother. And I said, that doesn't matter, you know. And so, yeah, that's absolutely correct and a very important thing to say. And I will just add that, you know, I guess it's important to reconnect with each other and with each other and with people around us, with our neighbors. I think it's really important to know our neighbors, who they are, and to reach out to them. And I have a beautiful community where I live. We live in flats, and we meet, we celebrate all different festivals together. And, you know, there's several different nations in our buildings, and we all share foods from our culture. And, you know, as my Muslim friend said, in our culture, we say that you should know 7 neighbors to your left and 7 neighbors to your right. And I think that's beautiful, and that's very true, because who do you turn to in troubles? You know, you turn to your neighbor. The neighbor is the closest to you. So now I would like to give a word to Tina, if there's anything she would like to add.
Yeah, I think I would like everybody to go home or go back to, you know, where they're living, and if they have a gift that has been made for them, either by their mother to send them off to college, or a heartfelt homemade gift, that is true art and that is true love.
Amen, amen. That's true. That's 100%, because those are the ones that you cannot put a tag onto. You cannot force someone to make it for you. It has to come from the heart. So I 100% go with Miss Francis and all of your takeaways. Miss Sandgreen, would you like to share your takeaway?
Is that me? Sorry.
Yes, apologies.
Thank you. No, no worries. Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. So appreciating people who care for you, or for me, appreciating them more, especially now that I can be with my parents for a short period of time, because I'm flying away again at the end of the week. So I'll just try to make the most of being with my parents and caring for them and making sure that they know how much I love them.
Karolina, also you have a question by Cartesina Sonde. She says she's curious if you had musical family members or perhaps your own mother. How did you get into singing into this style?
Oh, my parents didn't really sing much, only at local festivals or at the church. They did send me to music school at a young age, but it was mostly choir singing. And it was only later when I overheard elderly citizens from different regions of Poland and Ukraine who sang in this style. So this style is almost forgotten, completely forgotten, even in my country. It's a very much archaic or almost pagan style of singing. And it's still used in Belarus or Ukraine or in Russia. And even in more beautiful way, because it's done in polyphonic singing. So a few people would sing together, all different in harmonies. And it's very, very old, almost forgotten in here, like I said. So I had to learn it. It didn't come naturally. It wasn't in my family. It was a kind of learned later at a later age.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you all for being here today. A special shout out to Adelphi University's web team who posts everything on a super timely basis. If anybody here would like to connect with any of the presenters, any participants, you can just contact us at artivism@adelphi.edu and we will connect you. Vaishnavi, if ever you want to connect with any of these presenters, you may do so. I'm sure they will, allow you to reach out to them and get back to you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.